By no means is NHL free agency complete at this point in the offseason, but the bulk of the big ticket deals and the biggest contracts have mostly been handed out. Today we're going to take a look at the best and the worst free agent signings so far this offseason, in my humble opinion, of course, coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, an annual tradition here is kind of analyzing how the contracts that were handed out in free agency kind of affected the teams. We're going to take a look at the best and the worst. Of course, this is strictly my opinion. If your opinion is different, or let me know what you think of mine, no. Of course, this is strictly my opinion. I'd like to know what your thoughts are on some of these contracts as well down in the comment section. So certainly feel free to either agree, disagree, share your thoughts. Let's have a conversation. But in my opinion, there were some great contracts handed out. And as usual, there were some cringeworthy ones that to me just will not age well. And we're going to start with the ones that I am not fond of and I don't think will age well. Some of these are worse than others. And I'll kind of explain my thought process here as we go out. In my opinion, one of the worst ones handed out on Free Agent Frenzy Day, July 1, was the San Jose Sharks signing Jacob Trouba to a 4-year deal at $8.25 million. This is more money than he was making with the Rangers not too long ago. I know the cap has gone up. I know he didn't do too bad in Anaheim, but to me, he's not a top pair defenseman anymore. He's not a horrible player, but to me, this is way too much money for what Trouba is going to give you. There's certainly some things to like about his game, and there's some things to not like about his game. The Sharks certainly had a lot of openings on the blue line. Hardly anybody signed. They bring in Trouba and then Darnell Nurse. Definitely going to be a different look. I understand the Nurse contract, through trade, and you maybe give him a smaller role, different look, different reset here, but you didn't have control over what that contract was. You're willing to give the player a chance based on what you thought he could do for your team, but this was totally in your control. Signing Trouba was not the worst thing in the world, but at that kind of money, I just think it's way too much. It's not going to age well, and for a team that has a lot of young players coming up that's going to need a lot of big contracts, I just think you might have kind of hampered your cap space a little bit too much. I just think it's too much term and too much money here, in my humble opinion. Now, the Sharks also signed Mason Marchment. Again, I don't like this contract. I like the player, I like the fit, and I completely understand the sentimental attachment here, of course, with Marchment to San Jose. I get why he wanted to go there. I get why they wanted to bring him in. I think there's a great fit. I just think 5 years at $6.75 million, it's a lot. Mason Marchment has never had a longer-term contract like this. He's never made this kind of money before. I mean, you could maybe argue that some of his recent contracts might have been fair to underpaid. He's certainly been able to show good value, which is why he's been an attractive option for a few teams. But look at some of the teams that could have, locked him up sooner and didn't. I like Marchment, which is with all the high-end players they have there. I think he's definitely going to have a smaller role. It's too much. Again, I like the fit. I think he'll do good things for them. I just don't know that the contract is going to age well. Another one that I really cringed at was the Washington Capitals signing big defenseman Vinny Desharnais, 4 years at $4.2 million. To me, this is a massive overpay. It's probably about double what he should have been. In my opinion, what he should have gotten. I know for contract projections, my go-to resource is AFP Analytics. They're, not always bang on. Of course, sometimes players and teams got to have different thoughts, and sometimes you have to overpay, or, sometimes the market's not what you expect it to be, and you get less. But in this case, they greatly had him making significantly less on term and money. I do like aspects of his game when he was with the Oilers, and he was used as a third pair, killing penalties, didn't play a ton. You could use him in certain spots, and I understand with a rising cap that a lot of third pair D are even making $4 to $5 million now, in some cases at least, and that'll probably continue to change here over time. But again, a player who's never had this kind of term or this kind of money, it's just a huge overpay. I just think they're going to be expecting too much and are going to be underwhelmed with what they're going to get for value. Now, our GM at the Ducks, Pat Verbeek, finds himself in an awkward bind as I record this video to Leo Carlson, offer sheet from the Philadelphia Flyers at $18 million. He finds himself now in a much tighter cap situation than he ever expected to. He's in a situation where he's either going to lose his number one center, or he's going to have him on his team on a contract that's about $5 million more than he wanted to pay. We had heard from NHL insiders a couple of hours before the offer sheet was signed for Carlson that he was offering between 12 and 13. Leo Carlson's camp countered with, we want 15. He said, absolutely not. So they're like, okay, well, we'll sign this offer sheet at 18. So it's a massive gap. I'm sure they are ticked and they do not want to pay this contract, but they don't want to lose the player. But right now, their cap is getting very, very difficult. And they've signed a couple of contracts, in my opinion, that they could have avoided and given themselves some more flexibility. Not a fan of the A.J. Greer contract that came over from Florida. Again, I like the player. I think there's a fit there. It's not even that. It's that they gave him 4 years and $4.25 million. You'd never seen bottom six, fourth line guys getting term. It's been like a no-no. Like it's a, you get the odd one, and they almost always age poorly. There's a reason. They're a lot easier replaced. They're not players that get the big money or the big term. So they give him 4 years after a career year in Florida where majority of the team was injured and he had to play a lot more different situations, different roles than he ever had before. He's not going to do that there. So there's just no way he's going to give you the offensive numbers to justify the paycheck or the term. So I don't think that's going to age well. They also bring in veteran defenseman Nick Jensen on 2 years at $2.25. Normally I wouldn't be overly critical of a short-term contract with that cheap, but he's 35. He proved last year in Ottawa that he just can't play anymore. That hip surgery he had has taken a lot out of him. There were arguments to be made that there was a drop-off from his time in Washington to his time in Ottawa, but his first stretch in Ottawa was actually pretty good. But then once he started having problems with the hip, it really went down. Then he took a long time coming back from that. You could see the mobility changed. Then he ended up with a knee injury. His body's been through a lot. Again, I like the player. I think there's things he can add that are good. At this rate, I think the cap space could have been better spent. It's not a lot of money. It's not a lot of term. In the grand scheme of things, this will be one of the contracts that it's not going to be nearly as bad as some of these that we're going to talk about. But, at the same time, I just think with the predicament that the Ducks are in, those are two contracts right now that stick out as sore thumbs as bad decisions that they could have an extra $6 million to work with here. Could go a long way with getting themselves sorted with this unpredictable predicament that's presented to them now. Also, not a huge fan of the Utah Mammoth signing Anders Lee, 3 years at $5.4 million. I just think it's a little bit too much money, a little bit too much term. I don't mind, again, the player to the team. I know the Islanders contemplated bringing him back. There was, I believe, he was going to get less term if he stayed with the Islanders. So, he still thinks he can play. And you know what? He's been a fine player. He's a good leader. There's definitely aspects of his game that are good. And I think having a big power forward type, even though he's, not quite the brute he once was, but he's still a big, strong guy. He can play, with a lot of the skilled, smallerish forwards that Utah has in their lineup. Having a guy like this to me does make a lot of sense. But again, I just see his role not being what it was with the Islanders. Therefore I see his production scaling back even more, combination of age and role. And I just don't know that it's the money best spent. If they could have got him on a shorter term, a little bit less money, would have been better in my opinion. But I'm just not loving the total value of this contract. Again, a player, I don't have a problem with the fit. Just don't love that. Now, the Los Angeles Kings signing Matt Zuccarello. Again, I have no problem with the fit. But Zuccarello gets a 1 year deal. So thankfully it's only 1 year. But because it's a 1 year, he gets the bonuses, right? So the 35 plus 1 year with bonuses. 1 year deal at $1 million salary. People think, oh, this is great. He signed so cheap. Yeah. But then he's got a $5 million bonus built in, as well as other bonuses related to the playoffs. And the $5 million bonus only has to play 10 games and he gets that. Now, if the Kings don't have the space in their cap this year to absorb that, they'll have an overage and they'll probably have a penalty for next year that they're not going to be able to spend the full cap because they're going to have a leftover hit from this year. So, I mean, he's going to play the 10 games, make $5 million. So essentially, you're getting him at $6 million. If you make the playoffs, you win a round, he gets another $250. You win another round after that, round 2, he gets another $250. So it could be another $500,000. So like, you could easily earn $5.5 million above the one that he's getting as a salary. So to me, again, I like the player, like the fit and all that. Taking a chance, a veteran guy, 1-year deal. You need some extra scoring. Still played well. How is he going to play away from Kaprizov? That's going to be a test. I know he's obviously played with Panarin in the past. Obviously there's some connections there to some of the guys on the Kings, but this is just way too many bonuses. Way too many bonuses for this player. I'm just not fond of it. And I see the Kings having, cap hits next year that they don't need. Don't love the Ottawa Senators signing Sammy Ersson to 2 years at $2.2 million. Again, they spent a draft pick to get his rights from Philly, and then they don't qualify him as an RFA, makes him a UFA, and then they sign him for more money than the qualifying offer was for. This is the most mind-boggling deal of the offseason, in my opinion. Like, you had a chance to and he had no ARB case. In my opinion, he had ARB rights, which I believe why they didn't do the qualifying offer, because he could have elected salary arbitration if they didn't come to an agreement sooner. But I'm like, he hasn't played well. He had no case. For him to get another contract at his qualifying offer, to me, was good. Why are you giving him like another $500,000 more? Makes no sense. And a second year on top of that. To me, 1 year at 1.6 would have been fine. Take a chance. He's there for depth. If you have to put him through waivers, you can bury most of it in the minors, but just mind-boggling. I don't get that one at all. And I am going to put the Leafs signing Sergei Bobrovsky to that 3-year UFA contract on this list, mainly because I think it comes with a lot of risk. He's coming off his statistical worst season. Right now, I know the team in Florida was not great because of all the injuries last year, but if you look at that 7-year free agent contract he signed when he left Columbus to go to Florida, the first couple of years weren't good either, right? So, this is not, this contract for the most part will probably go down. That 7-year deal is being well worth it for the Panthers because they got 2 cups out of it. But, man, the year after and the years leading up to that were not good. The first cup run, he didn't even start game 1 of the playoffs. So this is not like it's a brand new one-off scenario. Now, he has a great resume. Sure. Great goalie, great career. Could he refine his game? Sure. I'm not saying it's a for sure bust. For me to give him 3 years at $7 million when this team has struggled, to find consistency in this position, to me, it comes with a lot of risk. Again, the player is fine. You had options on the free agent market. I understand why they went this route, but to me, I would have tried to get him for less term and maybe less money. But it is what it is. Now, some of the best contracts here, in my opinion, I'm going to give Tampa Bay some kudos for signing John Carlson. 2-year deal at $8.5 million. Basically, he replaces Darren Radish, but he comes in with a much longer resume, Stanley Cup on that resume as well. Of course, Radish got much more term going to the Maple Leafs. So Carlson comes in, like I said, similar number, but a lot less term. So it gets them out of the Radish contract and gives them much more flexibility in the short term. He'll help the power play. He'll help the offense. To me, this is a pretty easy one. Lots of character, lots of great things to like about how Carlson's going to fit in Tampa. Another great one is the Oilers signing Freddie Anderson. He should really help their goaltending. Of course, 1x1 plus bonuses. So again, looking at Anderson just won a cup. Bobrovsky, compare those 2 contracts. I'll take Anderson on a 1-year deal with some bonuses any day. The bonuses aren't as ridiculous either, so I think he has a real shot to help Edmonton, especially come playoff time. They also picked up Devin Levi. They still have Jari in the mix, so it's going to be a 3-headed monster between the pipes. I think that they're in a better spot than they were before, and they get a veteran goalie with good character and who just won a cup at a pretty reasonable price. So I like that contract a lot. I'll give the Leafs some additional credit here for signing Jack Roslovic. 2-year deal at $4 million. He's produced everywhere as he's went. Hasn't been a great playoff performer, though, which is something that they need to be concerned about. He does have history with Austin Matthews, played together at the lower levels. Certainly a guy who can play up and down your lineup. He can play center. He can play wing. For $4 million, a versatile forward who has produced in the regular season. I like the deal. I'm just a little concerned over the playoffs. Stuart Skinner going to the Winnipeg Jets. I like this contract. To me, this is Connor Hellebuyck insurance. 2 years at $375 for a guy who's got a lot of playoff experience, and he's had his ups and downs, but generally speaking, he's been an okay goaltender. And at this kind of price, I'll take Skinner on my team any day at that price tag. If they do end up moving Connor Hellebuyck now, they don't necessarily have to have a starting goaltender come back. There could be, maybe it's a goaltender with more of a tandem kind of guy or a backup. There's a lot of rumors about Hellebuyck and the Sabres. Maybe if they were to bring in UPL or Lyon or one of those guys coming back, then they could team up with Skinner. That might be a good tandem. So I like that contract a lot. And Skinner also seems very happy to be there, which is important for a market like Winnipeg. Ryan Shea, another good signing with the Edmonton Oilers. 5 years at $4 million, 29-year-old, good puck mover, good defensively. A little bit of a late bloomer in a sense, but had a good year with Pittsburgh. Again, a contract that I think will age well. Takes him right to his mid-30s, $4 million for the minutes he'll give you and everything and all the different situations you can utilize him. I think that's great value. Jamie Benn going back to the Stars on a one-year deal at $850 plus bonuses. Again, a player who's not what he once was, but signing for pretty cheap. Again, I like that. Same with Corey Perry in LA. Perry always seems to produce. I'm a little bit surprised he went back to LA. I thought he might land elsewhere, but again, cheaper one-year contract for what you get out of Corey Perry. You just really can't go wrong. The Jets also like Skinner. I really like the Mario Ferraro contract. 3 years at $4 million. Again, this is a guy who played on a lot of struggling, not so great San Jose Sharks teams for a long time, kind of flies under the radar. But to me, he can, depending on how deep your decor is, he can either play second or third pair. And he's another guy who is excited to be in a Canadian market, excited to be there, wants to help the team. And I think just a low-key, easy signing. Another good one as well was Toronto's Teddy Bluger again. A player nothing's going to wow you, but a low in the lineup kind of player. He just does a lot of little things right. I think he'll be somebody very much appreciated by the coach there in Toronto, and he can be relied upon for a lot of things, face-offs, penalty kill, and just a lot of the hard-working type of players. He's worked a lot through Vancouver and Pittsburgh and has proven to be a pretty versatile player at times. So again, a cheap one, it may not get a lot of attention, but I think in the end has a lot of value. Now, there's plenty of other signings as well, some that could probably fall into either category. That's all I'm going to cover here for today. Some of the best ones, in my opinion, some of the worst ones, in my opinion. I'd love to know what everybody thinks. Again, I'm sure there'll be a variety of opinions, so share them below. Let's have a conversation. Let me know what everybody thinks, and we'll discuss further in the comments. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.